Okay, we're recording. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Sadhu, sadhu. Okay, just give me a minute because still just recovering from a sore throat the past few days. I'm just gonna pop some lozenge so that I can read. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so today we're gonna read together the last chapter on the story of Venerable Maha Kassapa. So last week we came together to read a story of Venerable Maha Kassapa's role after the Buddha's parinibbana. He played a very important role because he was considered one of the most senior disciples at the time of the Buddha's parinibbana. So he convened the arhats of the time to come together to have the first council where they discussed or they set some rules for the monks and nuns. Okay. So today we're going to read some of the verses of Maha Kassapa, Venerable Maha Kassapa. So in the Theragatha is direct translation is like the verses, the poems. Gatha is like sometimes translated as songs. Not that they sing them, but you know, like as in, let's say we think of today's modern day music industry. Although it's evolved quite a lot, songs really are, you know, in essence, the lyrics of a song are in essence pretty much a poem telling a story. And so Theragatha's, we can think of it as poems or stanzas or sayings that the senior male disciples left behind. So if you recall, many moons ago, we read verses from the Theragatha. So again, Theri means senior female disciples or the elder female disciples during the Buddha's time. So they are gathas. So here we're going to read from the Theragatha, 40 verses ascribed to the Venerable Maha Kassapa. And excuse me, these stanzas mirror some of the great elders' characteristic qualities and virtues. His austere habits, yes, even till his old age, he practiced austerity in the way he lived his life and his practice, and his contentedness. He was very contented with that way of living, even when he was aged. Even the Buddha told him, you know, Maha Kassapa, you're not getting younger, you're getting older, so you should consider, instead of always going into the forest and going on alms, why not stay in a monastery? Yeah? And he refused. Yeah, so he was very contented with his practice, with his way of living, his strictness toward himself and his brother monks. He was very disciplined in a way, very strict, very disciplined. His independent spirit and his self-reliance. So we can tell just from his choice of how to live his life and his practice, he was very independent, even till old age. His love of solitude, he loved to practice in the forest. He didn't like going into, mingling too much with lay people. So his love of solitude and aloofness from the crowds, his dedication to the practice of meditation and the peace of the jhanas. And these verses also show what does not appear in the prose text, his sensitivity to the beauty of nature that surrounded him. So because he loved spending time in the forest, it's only natural for one to think that he loved the beauty of what the forest and nature gave. Here, only a selection of the stanzas is given, which may be read in full in the translations by Rhys Davis and Norman. Here is an exhortation to the monks to practice contentment with regards to the 4 basic requisites of a monk's life. Having come down from my mountain lodging, I entered the city to collect my alms. Courteously, I came up to a man, a leper, who was eating a meal. A leper, those of you who are not familiar, I don't think we have cases of, I could be wrong, like in modern day today, I'm not sure if there are still cases of leprosy. I think there is a cure, I think. But it wasn't until quite in recent decades that they found a cure for leprosy. I remember when I was a kid, hearing of, this was in Malaysia a couple of decades ago, that there is a center set up away from the city for people with leprosy. So leprosy is a kind of a, correct me if I'm wrong, those who dialed in, it's a kind of a skin disease. So it makes, I don't know, is leprosy contagious? Let me quickly Google. I can't remember. I don't think leprosy is contagious. But back in the days, people kind of didn't know much of leprosy and what it is. And so back in the days when there was hardly any research, some people believed that leprosy was contagious. Okay, so here I'm just going to quickly read something from Wikipedia because it's fast, but leprosy, also known as Hansen's disease, is a long-term infection by the bacteria Mycobacterium leprae. Okay, infection can lead to the damage of the nerves, so it is a very difficult disease to manage because it can damage the nerves, respiratory tract, skin, and eyes. And this nerve damage may result in the lack of ability to feel pain, which can lead to the loss of parts of a person's extremities from repeated injuries or infection through unnoticed wounds. Leprosy is spread between people. Okay, so it is infectious. Although extensive contact is necessary. Leprosy has low pathogenicity, and 95% of people who contract who are exposed to the bacteria do not develop the disease. So it is infectious, but 95% of people who contract it not necessarily develop the disease. So back in the days, we can imagine even during the time of Buddha, a leper or someone who has leprosy is shunned from society. Like nobody wants to be close to them. Nobody wants to be friends with them. Nobody wants to come into contact with them because there was no knowledge of, enough knowledge of the disease back then. And so Venerable Maha Kassapa came up to a man who had leprosy, and the man was eating a meal. With his hands all leprous and diseased, he offered me a morsel of food. So we can imagine this man, this leper, who probably didn't have much to begin with and is shunned from society. So barely, having enough for himself, and is all leprous, humbly offers a meal. a morsel of food, so not much, handful of food, to Venerable Maha Kassapa. As he placed the morsel in my bowl, a finger broke off and toppled in. So we read from Wikipedia just now, some lepers, if they're not careful, because they've lost the sensitivity to some of their nerves, they don't know if some of their extremities are also affected or have lack of proper blood circulation or that. And so in the extreme sense, it's not uncommon that their extremities start to fall apart. So a finger of the leper broke off and toppled into the bowl as well. And then Venerable Maha Kassapa said, I sat down at the base of a wall and ate the morsel, ate the food that he had given me. And while I was eating and after I had finished, I did not feel the least disgust. So he did not feel at all, even though a finger from a leper had dropped into his bowl as well. He did not. He was grateful that he had food. Using leftover scraps as food, putrid urine as medicine. So I think Bhante Vimalaramsi used to mention once that some monks in the forest, they sometimes, I don't know about today, but back when he was practicing, sometimes some forest monks, they would use the cow's urine as medicine, but they would take the urine and they would, oh, actually, you know what? Off memory, I can't remember if it was cow's medicine or goat's medicine. Sorry, cow's urine or goat's urine, I can't remember. But what they would do, according to Bhante Vimalaramsi, is they would put it out in the sun, the urine, and for a couple of days. For the urine to be under the sun for a couple of days. And then after that, it can become pretty good medicine. I can't remember what it was in treatment for. He did say, however, that a drawback is that because let's say we take that medicine after it's been sun for a couple of days, that our body will smell terrible. It will give out a very terrible smell. So people will keep, won't want to come near us for a couple of days. Can't remember what he said it was a cure for. Anyway, he used to mention that Bhante Vimalaramsi in some of his talks. Some of you probably remember. So using leftover scraps as food, to treat urine as medicine, the foot of a tree for one's lodging, and a robe made from cast of rags. So cast of rags, so in the past, during the Buddha's time, some monks and some ascetics, what they would do is they would go to the charnel grounds. So charnel grounds are, to be honest, I don't know if they still exist anymore, but charnel grounds are where, so let's say a person has died, and usually what happens is the body will be, oh, I see someone put something in the chat. They pickle olives in the urine. Ah, okay, so I see Pai just mentioned, so they put olives into the cow's urine or goat's urine, I guess, and they pickle it to cure constipation. Okay, that's very interesting. Yes, sticky rice. That's why I don't eat a lot of sticky rice because I have poor digestive system. So sticky rice is one of those things where it's nice to eat. It's almost like a delicacy. Well, actually, no, in some countries it's almost a staple. But it does make it very difficult to digest, and that's why it does make some people constipated. It could be, yeah, that could be possible. Yeah, so what we're talking about, yes, so back in the old days, what happened is, so when a person dies, then of course they will wrap the body in like call it rags, but they would cover the body and they would bring the body to the charnel ground, waiting for a cremation. However, sometimes someone could have died, but no one claimed. So usually they bring the body to the charnel ground, waiting for like a family member to claim the body and then bring to like for cremation and funeral rites and cremation. So, but sometimes no one claims the body, and the body is then left to decompose in a sense in the charnel ground. And so what those days, what some ascetics do is they would gather from the rags or whatever was wrapped around the corpse, and then wash it and then put it together to make a robe. Or they could make it from cast off rags, basically unwanted cloth. So what he's saying is here, this last verse here is just trying to explain how simple, how austere, and how contented Venerable Maha Kassapa was in his practice and his life. One who has gained mastery over these is truly a man everywhere at home. So basically, he's saying that a person who has gained mastery or become very contented with the very little. So here, the four requisites: food, medicine, shelter, and clothing. The examples that he gave here are the most basic, almost unwanted. And to a lot of people, especially today, would be in terms of the four requisites, these would be not only just a very basic, but undesirable almost to a lot of people today, right? We live in a world today where we are driven by consumerism and lots of advertisements, those of us who probably live in a more fortunate society, let's say. And yet we still see a lot of people complaining about their everyday lives, how they don't have the opportunity to eat the food they want, or can't find cures to their illnesses, or complaining about where they live, how insufficient it is, or are always finding ways to get better clothing. It's quite amazing, the society that we live in today. And here is a great master who lived during the time of the Buddha, who was so contented with the most bare minimum of these four requisites. And what Venerable Maha Kassapa put home here is that one who really gained mastery over these four requisites, in the sense of can be so contented and so comfortable with even the bare minimum, or something that's cast off, robes that's cast off, rags that's cast off and made into clothing, is truly a man everywhere at home. That means anywhere that person is, they can be contented. They will not complain, and they will feel very comfortable. And when Maha Kassapa was asked why at his advanced age, he still climbed daily up and down the rock. So he used to climb. There's a mountain near Rajgarh where there are caves there, and each of them used to practice in cave. So they would go walk after their alms, walk up. Yeah, you can say it's kind of a mountain. It's pretty high, or not a tall mountain, probably slightly shorter mountain. To be honest, I can't fully remember. But there are caves at the top of the mountain. I remember Venerable Maha Kassapa's cave was fairly narrow to get to. And then once you actually get into the cave, it doesn't look like a very comfortable cave to be in. Venerable Ananda's cave was quite the opposite, very spacious. And if you had like, if you want to, let's say, have an experience and you just bring a sleeping bag, or well, maybe more than a sleeping bag because it could be cold, something good for camping. It can be fairly comfortable in the cave that Venerable Ananda's cave. But Venerable Maha Kassapa's cave is quite different. And that is also a kind of a reflection of how he lived his life, how he practiced. So he still climbed daily up and down the rock. He said, while some grow weary as they climb the steep slope of the rocky mountain, Kassapa ascends, buoyed by psychic power, the Buddha's air, aware and mindful. Having returned from his daily alms round, having climbed up the rocky mountain, Kassapa meditates free from clinging, with fear and trembling well abandoned. So he is free. Well, he's an arahat, so he's free from any form of clinging, any form of fear, all abandoned. Having returned from his daily alms round, having climbed up the rocky mountain, Kassapa meditates free from clinging, quenched amongst those who burn with passion. Having returned from his daily alms round, having climbed up the rocky mountain, Kassapa meditates free from clinging. His task done. His cankers gone. Cankers, hindrances, negative habitual tendencies. Let's put it that way. And people asked again, why Venerable Maha Kassapa at his age wishes to live in forests and mountains? Does he not like monasteries, such as the Bamboo Grove and others? The Bamboo Grove actually is a really nice place. Very a big area, very quiet, very peaceful, like a park, really. Very nice, very comfortable. He didn't want to live there. Spread over the Kareri garlands, these regions are delightful to my heart. Resounding with elephants, so lovely, those rocky mountains give me delight. So he's kind of describing the forest mountains where he lives. The splendid hue of dark blue clouds, where streams are flowing cool and clear, covered with Indagopaka insects, probably a type of insect. Those rocky mountains give me delight. Like towering peaks of dark blue clouds, like lofty houses with gabled roofs, resounding with elephants so lovely, those rocky mountains give me delight. So we can imagine that he really loved living up in the mountains, even though it meant walking up and down every single day. So he probably had very good physique and stamina to be able to do that. But it's also part of the training, if he had been doing that all his life, then his brain and body would have been trained in that. Their lovely surfaces lashed by rain, the mountains are resorted to by seers like ascetics, or like people who how should we say, practitioners, you can say, ascetics, people who practice meditation, but not necessarily in the purpose of, well, they are also looking for enlightenment, but probably their understanding could be a little bit different. So the mountains are resorted to by seers, echoing with the cries of peacocks. Those rocky mountains give me delight. This is enough for me. desiring to meditate. Enough for me, resolute and mindful. This is enough for me, a bhikkhu, resolute, desirous of the goal. So he's just saying that, you know, I like staying in the mountain. It's very nice, very natural, peaceful. I like this, and it's enough for me because my goal is of course, nibbana, but also he probably wants to continue to have that peaceful, calm, meditative states daily. This is enough for me, desiring comfort, a bhikkhu with a resolute mind. This is enough for me, desiring exertion, a stable one of resolute mind. So here we can imagine when he says desiring comfort, I don't think he's referring to a comfortable lodging or comfortable monastery, because where he chose to stay up in the mountains, in the cave and all that, I think to a lot of people that's quite the opposite of comfort. What he's trying to say is comfort for the mind, his stable mind. That means it's away from all the noise, all the emotions, all the going ons in the world. He's like, I don't need all that. I prefer to stay here. It's very comfortable for someone like me who is stable, who is practicing with determined mind, a mind that wants to be in that peaceful state, in the meditative state. They are like the blue blossoms of flags, like the autumn sky covered with clouds, with flocks of many kinds of birds. Those rocky mountains give me delight. No crowds of lay folk visit these hills, but they are inhabited by herds of deer. With flocks of many kinds of birds, those rocky mountains give me delight. So here is very clear. He mentioned nobody likes to come here. No lay, not saying nobody, he says no lay people will come here. Great. For him, it's like, yay, peace and quiet. There are only deers and all kinds of birds, nature. Wide gorges where clear water flows, haunted by monkeys and by deer, covered by wet carpets of moss. Those rocky mountains give me delight. So he, as mentioned earlier, loves the nature, the natural habitat of the mountains. The music of a five-piece ensemble can never give me so much delight as I derive when, with one pointed mind or with a collected mind, I gain proper insight into the Dhamma. So what he's trying to say is, doesn't matter you've got very nice music being played by some musicians, uncomparable to what my collected mind, what the delight I get from a collected mind when I have some insights in the Dhamma. In the following verses, the Venerable Maha Kassapa voices his own lion's roar. As far as the range of this Buddha field extends, excepting the great sage himself, I am the foremost in ascetic virtues. One my equal cannot be found. So he's saying that he, in terms of the practice of asceticism, not the extreme one, but the disciplined one, in terms of how the Buddha prays, he is second only to the Buddha himself. The teacher has been served by me. The Buddha's teaching has been done. The heavy burden has been dropped. The conduit to becoming has been uprooted. So here he's just saying, that's why it's called lion's roar. So he is explaining how he has cut off all his clinging or his craving, any form of becoming has been completely uprooted. So there is no more any becoming. No more rebirth. Gautama, Gautama means the Buddha, Gautama, the immeasurable, does not cling to robe, to lodging, or to food. Whether it's the clothing or where he's living, or to any food, he doesn't cling. He is untainted, like a spotless lotus, bent on renunciation beyond the three worlds. The foundations of mindfulness are his neck. The great sage has faith for his hands. Above his brow is perfect wisdom, nobly wise. He ever wanders with all desire quenched. Okay, so there aren't many verses or even stanzas or even discourses by Venerable Maha Kassapa in the text, but here we read a few, and also based on the chapters that we read previously, we can see his way of living, his way of practice is clearly reflected here in today's chapter, and also in the previous chapters that we read. And there are not many during the Buddha's time and even till today that can practice to his level of practice. But here he was an exceptional practitioner and an exceptional teacher. So yeah, that was today's reading. Any questions or any comments? Pi or Paul? No? Okay.
I'm no questions, though. Thank you for the talk.
Most welcome. Today's talk is just pretty short. It's also the last chapter, sorry, the last section in this chapter of Venerable Maha Kassapa. So I thought we finish it off here and leave because the next one is on Ananda, which is a completely new altogether. Pi, yes, you have a question.
Yeah, it's just a comment about leprosy. I did see a documentary on YouTube some time ago about this Western woman who had leprosy, and she like took some injections like very regularly, and she didn't really affect her all that much. I think the problem is perhaps that if you get nerve damage and you don't feel pain, you tend to do lots of, because like my mother, she sort of had desensitized feet, and it messes you up because you do bad things with your feet, and it messes them up.
Yes, yeah, nerve damage is it's very difficult to manage. I'm sorry to hear that your mother had to manage that, had to deal with that. Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, there are many different types of illnesses that can damage the nervous system. Leprosy, and yes, I think, yeah, there are probably injections and other forms of treatment nowadays for leprosy, so people are not so badly affected now as compared to before. Other types of illnesses that can damage nervous system, whether it's temporary or permanent. One of them I was told recently, because my mom recently had shingles on her legs. And then I found out that shingles does affect the nervous system as well. It doesn't damage it, but it just amplifies the pain that one feels. So it does affect the nervous system in that sense as well. And anything that affects the nervous system, I can't imagine takes a long time to heal. because the nervous system is all connected to the spinal cord, which is connected to the brain. I mean, without the nervous system, we wouldn't be able to feel anything. And so I can only imagine that the signals or messages that are passed through the nervous system is like a super corridor highway to the brain, to the parts of the brain that need to know. So any damage to that is a tricky one to solve. But you know, I've been doing a lot of self-healing with a friend of mine who's an alternative healer. And when I use the 6 R's, and so with the loving kindness, now what I'm doing most recently is because I'm quite sensitive to the different things that go on in my body, which is good and bad. But good in the sense that then I use it as a tool to practice the 6 R's. So my meditation, more often than not, probably if we talk about 80-20 rule, then 80% of the time mine is a working meditation, what Bhante Vimalaramsi calls working meditation. So I'm doing a lot of 6 R's. And the loving kindness or forgiveness that I use it on the so in terms of traditional Chinese medicine, the classics aspect of it, our body is made up of different channels. So each channel has a certain function. It's very similar to the in yoga, there's a word for it.
Chakras.
Yes, very similar to the chakras. Thank you. And so in terms of the traditional Chinese medicine, there are different channels running through the body, and each of them have a different purpose, different, and also different organs linked to those channels. So when I apply the 6 R's, because quite often when I'm using the 6 R's for this purpose, I find it very effective because one can go very deep into the channels as we are doing it. So we, to a certain extent, I mean, you can think of it as we visualize the channels in the body, and then as I'm applying my thought process onto those channels, certain tension and tightness will arise. And so, as we recall, Bhante Vimalaramsi used to say, we should be friends with the tension and tightness that arise, because they are the pointers to where our attachments are, where our clinging tendencies are, where something that we have not let go. And so in terms of the healing process, it's also aligned, because the tension and tightness that arises in the body or in the mind is kind of like a hint. It's kind of like a pointer. There is something there that we have not let go. So in the case of how we work on it, is usually is related to some trauma in the past, and possibly sometimes, or actually quite more often than not, a trauma that we have forgotten because it has happened a long time ago, usually during childhood, but could be some other time. In any case, this is all about energy balancing in the body and the mind, right deep down into the subconscious or even unconscious mind. And so what we do is then when we are, in a way, just putting our attention on a particular channel, when the tension tightness arises, same thing. I just apply the 6 R's, recognizing. Usually the recognize I don't even have to do because I'm sensitive enough, the tension is almost always there. But recognizing also resistance. So we know that the clinging or the attachment, the other side of the coin, so to speak, is the resistance. So in very basic sense, definition of feeling or craving, sorry, it's the I like it, I don't like it mind. And so when the tension and tightness arises, and that's why the 6 R's is very practical as a method of meditation, is because the tension and tightness that arises in the mind or the body or the body is a manifestation of some form of craving in the mind. So we then use that same thing, just recognize that, then try to release and relax into it. And here is where it gets interesting, because in the beginning, we find a difficulty in relaxing into it, because and it depends on how strong the attachment or the resistance is. The stronger it is, the harder it is to relax into it, because the immediate tendency, and what I was told is, interestingly, from a classics traditional Chinese medicine point of view, the body and mind, when we have encountered certain trauma in the past, has developed some form of protective layer. So for example, I could be wrong because I'm only sharing from a personal experience. When I was in the beginning starting to practice the 6 R's, at some point I couldn't go further with the loving kindness. There was a big block. And so then the instructions were practice a forgiveness meditation. And for a very long time, I even didn't quite get the hang of how to practice forgiveness meditation. What I thought I was practicing, I realized only after a year and a half later that wasn't right. Although I did try my best, and I was checking with, I was asking, and am I doing it like this correct and all that, and trying to get help and all that. And then what I realized also in the process of going through that journey is, although we would tend to think that, oh, we're hitting walls, we're blocked, we're not getting anywhere, actually that is part of the journey itself. So what happens is, and now I'm beginning to understand it a little bit better, the block can, for many people, for different people, it could be different, but I think for majority of us, it's usually centered around the heart, so-called heart area, or we call it near the pericardium. And the pericardium is kind of like an area, you can call it chakra, that's close to the center, our heart area. And this is an area where it's a lot linked to, interestingly, our confidence, our sense of purpose, and many other things. Sorry, I don't study the classics. This is just based on what my friend tells me. But it's also what I found out, very important in the practice of loving kindness. So just to give an example, if due to certain trauma in the past, let's say we experienced some form of bullying before, or have been chastised many times, or gone through certain kind of trauma where we've been beaten down and we're not supported, whatever it is, that is basically we've taken some beating to our self-confidence. By the way, this is also the opposite. It's also when we talk about different sides of the coin, there is some ego in it as well. Okay. And so what happens is, over time, if we, let's say as a child or whatever, go through a lot of beatings, not necessarily physical, by the way, could be mental, could be emotional, beatings or bullyings, or being chastised, being told whatever, not enough, not good enough, whatever. Then what happens is, over time, the pericardium area starts to develop not a visible layer, but like a protective layer. Like it's trying to protect ourselves, is what I'm told. It's trying to protect ourselves from getting hurt anymore. So, because again, it has to do with the ego, right? If there is no ego, for example, arahats, then there's no concept of being hurt, but we're not there yet. And so what happens is, the pericardium, or the heart area, the heart chakra, starts to close up, and, or not close up, but form layers of what it thinks, what the body thinks, what the mind thinks is protection against any more further hurt, right? Now, the drawback of that, you can call it natural self-defense mechanism, if you want to think of it that way. The drawback of that is, when we try to practice loving kindness, we can't feel anything. We struggle to like express loving kindness. To a certain extent, if the block is very big, many layers, then sometimes even the having loving kindness for oneself becomes a big challenge. Yeah, if it becomes too heavy. And so what we do in the forgiveness meditation is just a tool to lift off that block, that protective layer that became the somewhat the self-defense mechanism to protect oneself from further hurt. See, it's like a double-edged sword. In the sense, the body and the mind figured out, okay, I need some form of defense mechanism to protect myself from further hurt. However, in the process of developing that, we have also cut off that ability, that human, what's the word? Natural inclination of all human beings to develop that unbiased loving kindness. Okay, so I was told recently that, for example, because I was reading a book about empaths and narcissists. So interestingly, empaths and narcissists are two sides of the same coin. And so narcissists, what happened, how they became that way, there's a theory is that when they were children, they had experienced some form of trauma. And because of that, they developed this nature. It again is another form of self-defense mechanism. Blocking to protect the body and the mind develops that to protect against any further harm to the person. So so that's why, you know, when we practice loving kindness meditation, lots of people today say, I can't feel anything. I don't know how to practice loving kindness. I can't feel loving kindness at all, right? And so what happens then is, because of that big block, then what do people generally fall back to is meditating on the breath. Because generally we can feel the breath. The breath is neutral enough that whether it's the awareness of breathing in and breathing out, or the rising and falling of the abdomen, whatever, that's all still comes under the meditation of the breath, is easier for a lot more people nowadays, because we have this tendency to believe that we can't feel anymore. We can't feel loving kindness anymore. So the cure to that is a lot of patience and a lot of faith in the practice itself, because it's very, very easy to say to oneself, well, I tried and it didn't work, so give me something else. And this is very common today, because if we walk, for example, we walk to the pharmacy, we walk to a chemist. Let's say I am vitamin D deficient, which apparently, according to recent studies, 50%, up to 50% of the US population is vitamin D deficient, right? So it's so easy nowadays. We can walk into any chemist, try, let's say, Blackmore's vitamin D, try it for a week, and then we go, nah, not doing anything for my body. What do? Scrap that, try a different brand. And because of this level of consumerism we have now, where we are privy to so many different types of brand in the marketplace now, that it's only natural for our mind to do the same when it comes to the practice of meditation or any type of practice, right? For example, yoga, because there's so many different types of yoga now, right? If we were to ask Hugh and Sarah, I'm sure they will share that, probably they do have a lot of people come to them, try it for a while, go, not Sukita yoga doesn't work for me, I'm going to try Hatha yoga or something else and see if that works. See, so what happens is the level of patience to stick through a particular set of instructions, really stick to it and really try it out until we're really convinced that it won't work. That period of trying out, that dedication has really shrank. And it will continue to go shorter and shorter. Why? Because our younger generation now have even more choices and more exposure to more information, more channels. And because of that choice, because of that exposure, that level of sticking to one set of instructions, or to have that discipline, have that faith that this will work for me, I just need to keep doing it repeatedly in the same way, in the same cycle, until my brain gets it. Or in other words, some people now, they say, until I break through. So when they say I break through, it just means that the brain suddenly rewires after many, many rounds of 6 hours. Then it clicks. And then what some people say, breakthrough. So sorry, I can't even remember the question anymore. We were talking about leprosy, were we? I can't imagine how I connected it all the way to 6 hours and forgiveness. But anyway, I hope that was useful, because I mean, I had a lot of challenges personally when I was practicing a forgiveness. Now, not so much. In fact, now what I do is I combine 6 hours with some other practices. They're all connected, by the way. Everything is connected, including diet and exercise. So I can't imagine that Venerable Maha Kassapa, for his age, to continue that type of living and that type of practice, he must have been very strong, both mentally and physically. So when we practice the 6 R's, and if our object of meditation is loving kindness, we need to have that faith, and just continue to observe and see how that naturally, the natural progression of that practice. If we practice and then we find we're stuck, and then we're given the instructions to switch to the forgiveness, then we have to have the faith to stick to that instruction for a long time, or at least until something clicks in the brain, whatever it is. And if we have that faith, it will come to be, because not because it's mentioned in the text like so many places, but because, see, those of you who are familiar or sat in to Venerable Sister Kema's talks in the past, and she mentioned a couple of times, she said, well, I think the Buddha really was the father of neuroscience, of neuroplasticity. In essence, what 6 R's or right effort, what we are doing is we are rewiring our brain towards higher happiness. And so we are changing the habitual tendencies, the neural networks in our brain to react in certain ways to what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and think. And so when we are applying the 6 R's, we are actually rewiring the brain to respond differently. The next time our perception sees, hears, smells, tastes, touch, or think something that appears which even has a slightest resemblance to what we've come into contact before in the past, we want to change the reaction to that. And it can be done. It can be done. In fact, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible. And so that's why it makes it so interesting, this whole entire practice from a scientific perspective, and even beyond science, beyond current day science, let's put it that way. So it is scientific, but it's beyond what current day scientists have got to. So the latest research in neuroscience are actually coming very close to what is described in the dependent origination, but not there yet. Not there yet. At least those that I've listened to the podcast and all that, they're very close, but a lot of times I feel, and this is again personal opinion, I feel they miss the mark a little bit. Just like how during the Buddha's time, when he went to the different teachers, and they were very close, but they missed the mark just by that tiny bit. So yeah, if we continue in this practice, it is not impossible to rewire. And so this is also what I do. So when I teach my students music, just to share here, I found that so basically what I did was, because I'm not a twin guide and not trying to teach my students meditation, what I'm trying to do is really just to use some steps in what we learn here to see if kids between so now I tried it on kids between the ages of 7, from 7 onwards. And soon I think I'm going to experiment with a little bit with some of my students who are 6, because nowadays even 6-year-olds, they're very mature. And so I do a simplified version of the 6 R's. I don't have the goal in mind to lead them to the jhanas or anything. That's not the goal at all. And so the purpose of that is not to teach them the 6 R's, no religious connotation whatsoever. But what initially started off as an experiment has, especially this year, start to display real results. So when I say real results, I mean not only are there music understanding or the ability to understand how to practice and how to I mean the ability to understand the instructions and all that, not only has it progressed so much, but from what I gather from them, 2 of my students, one of whom is very diligent in her practice. So instead of 6 hours, I compress it into 3. And she is finding high school not stressful at all. She's doing much better in her schoolwork, and the entire mindset towards how to study, how to practice music, how to live a healthy life as a healthy teenager is changed. And she's much happier and not stressed, and very excited, very excited to learn, very inquisitive, very, healthy and happy. Yeah, most of the time. Yeah. Then the other is the 10-year-old boy who used to be very stressed. Yeah. But lately, has also started to see the benefits of this teaching. And also I shared with him, what is common now. And Venerable Sister Kema also mentioned it once before, doing a gratitude journal as well. And also has seen big changes. So, that's why as I practice this, not only for the so-called aiming for meditative absorptions or meditative peace, whatever you want to call it. This is a very practical way of living. Whether it's during the time of the Buddha or whether it's today in the 21st century, it doesn't matter. Because the way the human being, how we perceive things, how our entire physiological neural process works in the body, in the brain, in the mind, has not really changed much from the time of the Buddha until now. The only thing that has changed is the outer, but how we perceive everything and how we store everything has not changed. And that's why the dependent origination, the process, is still relevant till today. Not only in terms of trying to achieve meditative absorptions or meditative peace, but as a way to live life. Because what we're doing when we are rewiring our brain, we are literally changing how we perceive everything that is going on. Whatever people say to us, whatever people think about us, whatever we think people are thinking about, we are actually training our brain how to respond differently. And so in the beginning, when we're doing this practice, we have to be active in it. This is what's the working meditation, what's it all about. We're like constantly telling ourselves, and somebody says something and our brain go, oh, that person is talking behind my back, in that immediate moment, if we can train our brain and go, recognize I'm all tense, start, release, relax, re-smile, return, re-smile, return to whatever we're doing. If we keep doing that every time the mind goes away, we will see at some point, even the thought that arises, even if it's just a thought, the brain clicks. And when that happens, then, like what Bhante Vimala Ramsey used to say, that's when it gets fun. So this is yeah, I just thought to add, I know I digressed quite a bit and I hope I'm not being very boring here, but I just thought I wanted to add this to give a little bit of support and encouragement to those out there, or Pai and Paul, if you're listening to this talk now and feel like you're finding it, in case you're finding it difficult in your own practice, or having some challenges with the loving kindness, or if you're practicing forgiveness, whatever it is you're practicing. And to those who are listening, have that faith that it's only a matter of time. So long as you've checked your practice with the twin guides, or with Bhante, so long as you've checked your practice and you know that you're doing it right, and although we see, like, I can't see, for example, I don't know where I'm going, I don't know if this is right, check your practice. If it is okay, there's nothing wrong with the practice, then keep going, because then it's just a matter of time that something will click in the brain. And when that happens, literally your entire view of how the world works around you changes. That's the first thing. It's not a firework eruption thing though. It's like little bit, you know, like little bit here today in this instance, then tomorrow in that instance, little bit. And then after a while, that little bit gets more and more. And then it gets to a point where it's like it becomes our new normal. So the brain starts to realize that, oh, this is my new normal. And then the brain forgets. This is where it gets interesting. The brain actually forgets how it used to respond. Doesn't even come into play anymore. The new normal has taken over. The new normal of naturally practicing loving kindness, naturally smiling, naturally, when faced with any form of inverted commas threat, knows what to do. And when that happens, then yeah, it gets quite interesting and fun. Sorry, I digress so much. Was there anything else from Pai or Paul who dialed in? Otherwise, we can share merits for today. No? Paul, feel free to edit the last part out. I'm not sure if it was relevant at all. I don't know how I ended up digressing so far. But, you know, feel free to chop it off when you're editing if you like. Okay, so let us share some merits. Let me find the sharing of merits. But it's very interesting, I find, for healing, for children. When I first started the experiment, I myself wasn't sure. I was like, oh, will it work? I'm not sure, you know. But I kept my expectations very low. My expectation was never about teaching anyone meditation or enabling somebody to get into the jhanas or whatever. I never had that expectation. My expectation was purely, even till today, just to help my students, the kids, you know, get a better education, become happier kids. And so after this experiment, running this experiment for about 3 to 4 years now, and finally starting to see the results, really solid results come out, then I'm starting to be more confident that this works, really, even on kids. Okay, but the thing about kids is we need to frame it. We need to frame it a little bit simpler. So the younger the kid, then the simpler we need to frame it for them to understand. So we need to reframe in their context. So we need to first understand what kids nowadays are going through. What is their life like? What sort of exposures they, you know, what are they exposed to in school, their friends, society, etc. We need to understand that first. Then only we'll know how to reframe it. Otherwise, they won't be able to get it. Okay, so let me share. Okay, so we can share merits together. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shadow grieve. May all beings find relief. May all beings share these merits that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, thank you, Pi. Thank you, Paul, for dialing in. I hope I didn't bore you to death. And then, yeah, I hope it was beneficial. Hopefully it'll be beneficial to those who will be listening to the recording as well. All right, have a good week. Take care. Keep smiling. Bye-bye.